That's non-cooperative games. Then we have cooperative games. So you kind of hinted at this: the two people in a game playing against a bunch of NPCs. Yeah.
NPCs.
There's also this thing called the cookie experiment. You and I are baking cookies, right? I bake cookies at a rate of 10 an hour,
Okay.
and you bake cookies at a rate of 20 an hour. So naturally, you'll be able to make more profit because you're faster, right?
Okay.
Assuming we sell them at the same rate. Now, we decide to team up.
Okay.
So we want to make more profit by teaming up. And we end up baking 40 cookies at an hour because I'm doing certain things while you're doing other things, and we're just naturally better at it together.
Right.
Now, let's say together after 1 hour, we bake those 40 cookies versus alone, we had baked a total of 30 cookies because my 10 plus your 20, right?
Ah. Okay.
Versus the 40. How would you split up the profits of those extra 10 that we made? Because, technically,
The rate at which you were working was 10 an hour. I'm working 20 an hour, and now we made an extra 10.
right,
So
right. How would you? Because technically, you can't just give it to me. I'm technically slower. That's counterproductive to you. I'm not going to give it to you because I put in some work as well.
we
You
need to
know?
split it.
Yeah. So the answer to this is it's really simple actually, but when you dive deep into the math, it's a lot more complicated, and I don't feel like going into that. But basically, the way that you would optimally divide it is by using something called the Shapley value equation.
Oh, sweet.
Do you remember what that is? Did you
I
ever use it?
Yeah, I did. I forget what it was, but the name is so weird. You don't forget that name.
Okay, so what I'm about to say is probably going to bring back some nightmares for you, but
It's okay. It's
okay. Now, you technically gave a marginal contribution of 30 cookies to me because look, if you take the 10 that I would have made myself and subtract it from the 40,
Yeah,
then that leaves 30. So your marginal contribution
was 30.
is 30.
Okay.
Now let's reverse. My marginal contribution to you
Is 20
is 20.
because I do 20 an hour.
Yes, exactly. And now what you have to do is
You add those two up and divide by the difference that we're trying to calculate.
yes.
So 30 plus 20 divided by 10.
No, divided by 2 because it's us two.
Oh,
So yeah, my bad. It's the number of players cooperating. It is the addition. It's just the average, basically.
okay.
So you just add that marginal contribution, divide by the number of players.
Okay. So it's 25.
Yeah. So that would be you, and then I would get 15, for instance.
Ah, I see. So of the 40, I need to make 25 in that hour. You need to make 15. That's fair.
Yes, that's
Okay.
how much you can profit off of, assuming we sell each cookie for $1.
Yeah, assuming we're sharing equally the rates at which we are to bake, these are the quote unquote fair rates.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's take this up one higher level of abstraction.
Here we go. Level up.
What say you when we have to make international treaties between nations or like
Yeah.
policies on climate change, environmental things, whatever?
Oh dear, good lord.
Because those are technically cooperative games right there.
They
No one's trying to get a leg up on someone else. They're
you.
trying to maintain each other.
That is what we are told. Yes.
You're saying don't be a sheep. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
no. Just research this stuff yourself, because politics is very muddy, especially now. So if you want to really do it, but let's just pretend we're all friends. We're all working together for the greater good. Let's just make that rational assumption once more. So, okay. So what's the goal? Reduce pollution, I guess.
Yeah, let's literally use an example of environmental protection or something like that.
I mean, in this situation, the ideal scenario would be to check the carbon footprint of every country that is working together and try to measure what is causing this and how essential are these things. So like for cars, for example, in the United States are fairly essential. America, for the most part, I think I read this somewhere, is not designed for walking. Europe, on the other hand, is a lot more walker biker friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So to reduce Europeans' carbon footprint may be a lot easier than to reduce America's. But in the essence of working together, you know, it would be hard because you need to find a substitute. You can't just say done, we're gone, because that's not in our favor anymore. Even if it's in the favor of the world, it comes at our expense, which is it's like not fair. Maybe if Europe could, invent an electric car of their own and just like donate some, okay, problem solved, I guess.
Well,
donate a few 100 million or so, that'll do it.
okay, so the unfortunate flaw in your argument is the fact that you're basing it on altruistic tendencies that we know we have them, but in this case it's not all the answer, because someone has to spend time and money to build all that infrastructure, and who's going to want to do it if no one is necessarily going to benefit from it outside of that infrastructure?
This is why it's hard, because it's like, if the carbon footprint is bad, the quote-unquote optimal solution in the essence of stopping it would be stop factories, stop cars, stop buses, stop planes, stop boats, or stop automated stuff. Go back to wagons and wooden boats. That'll be the solution.
Which is not.
No one's gonna do that anywhere. Not even Europe will do that. So what's the next best thing? Well, now we have to work together and see like we need to analyze the threat. We need to understand like what's the worst that can happen. Should we keep going in our course of action now? We need to hypothesize what would happen if it accelerates. So let's say we're using more greenhouse gases and more energy as time progresses. We need to hypothesize the negative outcome if we do that. We need to like look at every case scenario, and we need to see it from every different country, and we need to see every different angle, and we need to see what's the worst that's going to happen. Like, we need to plan for the worst, because we need to care for the planet if you want to anyway. And in this situation, you need to now choose which of these is like the most efficient in the realm of utility, in the realm of helping the planet while also maintaining our current infrastructure. And simple, right?
Yeah, way easier said than done. So I'm gonna have to go back at you again and say you still haven't really answered the question. Because what
was the question again?
It's how do you go about something like this cooperatively within a coalition? Like, let's say, for just thought experiment purposes, myself and you are two countries, and there's a demilitarized zone between us that we need to operate over. So we have to cooperate in order to structure any policy around this demilitarized zone between us.
So, like, what are we going to do with it?
Exactly. Because me and you are at a crossroads, or we're at war, right? But we don't want to,
fight anymore.
We're more like a stalemate.
Okay.
And there's this cross-section of land that we refuse to touch because it's just it holds us away from each other, and there's people that live there. And imagine if like North and South Korea were separated by Switzerland.
And
you got me?
The question is, what
let's say,
do we both want Switzerland?
Yes, we want to enact our changes, but we know that if one takes the other, then it'll be catastrophic for both parties.
Okay.
Right? So now how do we cooperate to, quote unquote, create these, these policies?
If history is anything to go by, it's usually just split it in half and just say my half, your half.
Right, but then what happens to the country that has a bigger GDP? Like South Korea, for instance.
It prospers and the other suffers.
Is that is that necessarily true? Because remember, let's bring it back to the cookies. Like, you could say you're South Korea, I'm North Korea. You're making 20, I'm making 10, right? Technically, you should get more. That's how the equation works. That's how
Right.
mathematically it breaks down. But
I mean, that's
you can't split it in half.
it's a bad example, but in at least the countries you're choosing
I'm using it because I'm thinking of literally two places
that are right next to each
are
other,
right next to each other, separated by a strip of land. And
and assuming they're semi-allies, they don't want to fight, but they also want to benefit themselves.
yes, and they don't necessarily like each other either.
But they still need to work together.
I think it's actually the best example I could have used. What do you mean?
It's okay, because I just so how would you divide the land? I mean, it's hard because on the one hand we can just fight to the death for it and winner takes all. On the other hand, we can completely just leave it alone so nobody gets anything, so we're equal at zero. On the flip side, trying to split it, so this is the question: how do we split it? Assuming that is the route we want to go,
Yeah.
who gets what?
So this is the same thing as
The
the
cookie
environmental policy. This is the same thing that a lot of countries face. This is literally this dilemma right here. How do you split up? How do you cooperate non-cooperatively? Or rather, how do you gain an edge on someone while not gaining an edge on someone? Well, you want to make people think.
Compromise.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of
Technically,
compromise.
yeah, technically it's a matter of compromise, but a lot of countries tend to not do that.